Okay, viewers and subscribers, once again I've got this HP 21 VT engine all apart. So since the last video that I posted of this thing running, and now I've run it several more times, probably about 10 or 12 times total, not 10 or 12 tanks, 10 or 12 times, be very short runs. In those course of those runs I've done several things. One of the times I took the head off and rechecked the timing. I've even had the engine apart before or in between those runs, and I just got to the point where I was kind of frustrated with how the thing was running, and I decided I would go ahead and replace the bearings, because it just, to me, it seemed like as I flipped it over, it just didn't feel as smooth as I thought it should for being a theoretically low runtime engine. So I've got this engine apart again right now, and I ordered bearings. I've got the bearings in, and I've actually installed them on here. Let me take this thing out, because I've got quite a bit to talk about on this video, and it could be kind of long. So I already went and installed the bearings on here. It's a very simple thing. There's a shoulder here, so the front bearing, because you think, well, geez, I'm not able to push them into a pocket. Well, it really didn't matter. This rear bearing just goes up, backed up all the way against the crank counterweight, and there's a shoulder here, so you just push that one on there, and the spacing is perfect and everything's grand. So these are new bearings, and they're both rubber seal bearings. I wasn't going to remove any of the seals. I'm just going to leave them just as they were. Now, the other thing that I had noticed, and you'll see here that the piston is still in this engine. The other thing I had noticed when I had it apart, it was that the piston ring, and here's the original one, this kind of leads to some of my discussion. The piston ring, it's not a pinned piston because there's no porting in here at all. It's just a completely cylindrical, non-ported cylinder, so there's no alignment pin that holds that gap on the piston, and this, or in the ring, and this is a Dykes ring, so it's an L-shaped ring. But in the course of me cleaning this engine and all that, I would always try to see if I could rotate or get the piston ring out from the groove. Well, there was always one spot on the right on the other opposite one of the ring gap that would not ever come out for whatever reason. I heated that thing up, I soaked it, I had it in the ultrasonic, I heated it. Wouldn't come out, and I figured, well, you know what, I'm going to end up forcing it out, and then it's going to break. And sure enough, it did. So I was like, well, you know what, I'm ordering bearings. I didn't order bearings from Mikoa, but I did order, and that's the thing that I love about this engine, is there's still parts available. I ordered a new piston ring, and I also ordered, I said, you know what, if I'm spending money on this engine, and those of you that don't know, I past tense, did have a brand new in box HP 25 VT. I decided I didn't really need that engine, so I sold that engine and used the money that I got for that engine to buy a lot of these parts. So the other thing I bought for this engine to go along with this one, because this is a long-term investment, I'm going to keep this 21 engine regardless of whether it has a box or not. I like it. But I went ahead and invested in the $50 or $49 upgraded head, which basically is just a couple more shims, a gasket, a black head that's machined out differently to accept a roller bearing. Now, if you were to actually just buy the roller bearing itself, you'll find that roller bearing is a $32 item on its own. So that's where 90% of the cost of this thing goes. So I'm not probably going to put this on at this time, but I will do that in the future. I mean, there's really nothing to it. You just put it on there. It's not like there's anything to explain there. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about with this engine that I think is just kind of a, I don't know, maybe it's a poor design, maybe it's just the way I'm looking at things, is that this bevel gear, and you can pull it out, this bevel gear rides in a channel in the case, and then it's secured with basically a metal landing gear type strap. Now, when I first got this engine and disassembled it, I noticed that these screws, and that was noted on my videos, I was like, oh man, these screws aren't tight. Well, I know why they weren't tight now, because if you actually tighten those screws down, there's some tolerance issue here wherein that it makes this so that it's really stiff and it won't turn at all. I mean, it'll turn, but it's not like it won't turn freely. So I thought about this and I was like, what the hell is going on here? And if I zoom in a little bit more on this screw head, I don't know if the camera's gonna like that or not, but if you look here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not. You'll see a little bit of a shiny spot on this head. And I think there's another shiny spot on this head. Well, what was happening was the inside of the crankcase has this little divot in it. Whether those are machined or cast part of the mold, I'm not sure, but obviously that's where the head of that screw would go, and I think that little ledge is supposed to keep that screw from coming out, obviously. I mean, because you don't want that screw to come out, because then this gets all loosey-goosey and bad things happen. So whatever happened was when I would turn that down and tighten it, this would get too loose. I was like, well, what the hell? What kind of a design is that? That just seems stupid. And one of the times I took this engine apart again after running it several times, I noticed that I had a lot of dark colored oil in here. So it was, a lot of metal on metal wear. Now, these teeth on here don't look bad, but obviously some of it was the head, because the coating is worn off of these heads where it was contacting that upper part of the case. So I'm thinking, what the hell do I do here? So one time I tried cleaning this really good. I put blue Loctite on those threads and I just ran them down just enough so that I had good rotation here and it would hold it in place and wouldn't vibrate or anything. So I ran it a couple, 2-3 times, opened it up again, and these damn screws worked loose again still. So I'm thinking, what the hell am I supposed to do here? Because if I just let them come up to the point where they're contacting the upper case, then this has too much play in it, and it's just going to cause a lot of wear on these gears, and it's just piss poor. So what I've done this time is I've tried to find some really thin washers. And what I've done is I put that washer on top of the landing gear strap to effectively raise the top of the screw head just enough, the thickness of the washer, so that maybe it'll contact in these areas and not vibrate and rotate loose. We'll see what happens. So anyway, that's kind of part A of this disassembly, was trying to figure out how to keep this thing from vibrating loose and causing a bunch of dark oil to come out of the engine, because that's never a good sign, especially after several runs. It shouldn't be like that, because I was actually flushing this thing too. So the other thing was, and I'd probably replace 2 or 3 piston rings in my life, so it's not something I've done that often. What I did here was, and you can see this piston is already in here, is I bought the ring for the 21 and made sure my groove was clean, carefully put that piston ring on there in the groove, and then I pushed it shut, because this is not a piston ring that's going to rotate around and there's no pin on there. But it's such a tight fit that I had that gap closed, and I was having a hard time just even trying to get it to start in here.